Hi, this is Heather Pelletier from Matsu iTech, and I'm going to be going over lesson 4.3, the slope intercept formula. The slope intercept formula is y equals mx plus b. One thing you really need to keep in mind when you're working with slope intercept is you're talking about lines on a graph with an x and y axis. So always keep that in mind when you're working with this formula. Y and x are points on the line, and m is your slope. And slope is defined as rise over run, which is your change in your y divided by your change in your x. And b is the y-intercept, which is where x equals 0, typically where the line crosses over the vertical or the y-axis. Before we start trying to graph, you need to be sure you understand how to find the slope and the y-intercept of the line. So I've got a few examples here of your y equals mx plus b. So the first one, your slope is always the number in front of the x, so it's going to be 3. I'm going to turn that into a fraction just in my mind. My slope is 3 over 1. The y-intercept is where y is equal to 5, and it's also defined as x is 0. So it's going to be a point on a line, so it's going to be in parentheses 0, 5. My second line is going to be a negative slope, and if you graph it, it should go downhill, and that will be 7 over 1, or negative 7. And then my y-intercept is also negative, and that will be the point at 0, negative 3. The third one here, my m is 2/3. It's already in a fraction, so I don't need to change that. So my slope is 2/3, and my y-intercept is at positive 9. So that would be at the point 0, 9. Now you're going to take your formula and make it into a graph. So here I have a couple of examples. We'll make a couple of lines on the graph. So I've got a slope of 6, and my y-intercept is at 2. So you need to have 2 points in order to create a line. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark where my y-intercept is, and that's at where x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 2. So that point is going to be right here on my graph, so I'll put a spot there. And then I need to use my slope to find my second point. My slope is 6, and I'm going to make this into a fraction of 6 over 1. So it's rise over run. Rise is always on y, and run is always on x. So my vertical rise will be positive 6, so I'm going to go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then my run is 1. I'm going to count over 1, and that's where I'm going to put my second point. And then all I have to do is draw a line between these 2 points and connect the dots. Your line will theoretically go on forever, so you can drag it out pretty much as far as you want. And that will be how I graph this line. The next one I have here is y equals negative 1/4 plus 3. So it's already in the fractional form, so my y point will be 1, negative 1, and 4 on the x-axis. So the first thing I do again is I find my y-intercept, which will be at 3. So it'll be 0, 3. So I'm going to mark that point in here. And then since this is a negative slope, I need to go down 1 and over 4. So remember, rise over run, or fall over 1 in this case. So I'm going to go down 1, and then I go over 4. And I'm going to mark that point. And then once again, I will connect the dots. And my line can go infinitely in either direction, so I'll stretch it out a little bit here. So I should have a negative slope on my second line, which it does go downhill, so that's a negative slope, so I know that should be pretty close to correct. And my first one should have a positive slope or an uphill slope. Okay, now we're going to learn how to go from a graph and turn it into your slope-intercept equation. So I have 2 lines on the screen here. One of them has a negative slope and one has a positive slope. So we'll start with the black line, which is a positive slope. So the first thing I need to do is determine my b, or my y-intercept, and that is where the line crosses over y. So that point is right here at 2, or 0, 2, 0 on x, and 2, y. So I know that that is going to be a positive 2. And then I need to do my slope. So slope is rise over run, so I'm just going to find a convenient point, and it could be anywhere along this line. And since it's positive, I would probably want to go on the uphill side just to make it more clear. So I'm going to count up to any point here. So I'm going to go to this point right here. And then I just count up my y, which is 1, 2. So it's 2 up, and then my x is 2 over. So my slope will actually be 2 divided by 2. So my formula for this for the black line will be y equals 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it's going to be 1x plus 2. Or you could also call that y equals x plus 2. The red line has a negative slope. Do that one in red. And so the first thing again is to find my y-intercept. And where it crosses y is at -6, so that's going to be my first point. So my b will be -6. And then I need to find my slope. Since this is a downhill slope, I want to count down, not up. So I'm going to find a point on the line that crosses over somewhere that's easy to graph. So I'm going to choose this point right here. And then I'll get my rise over run, which will be negative. So I go from 6, it's 1, 2 down, and 1 over. So my slope here is going to be -2 over 1. So my formula for this one will be y equals -2 over 1x minus 6. Or you could call that y equals -2x minus 6. And that, folks, is all there is to it.